The Galactic Council broke humanity. Humanity broke reality. The verdict was already decided before I opened my mouth. I knew it the moment I walked into the convocation chamber and saw 900 alien delegates seated in perfect rehearsed silence. There was no murmur, no shuffling, none of the usual chaos that filled this hall when a genuine debate was about to happen. They had already voted. They had already agreed. They had brought me here not to hear my case but to watch me receive it. My name is Yara Solis. I was 31 years old, a commander in the Earth Diplomatic Corps, and I was the only human being in a chamber built to hold every recognized civilization in the known galaxy. The air smelled like something between copper and rain. The lights were too blue. The seats rose in curved tears above me like the inside of a skull. And at the very top, framed by two columns of pale light, sat Council Speaker Vorith Kau. He was old, even by Valoran standards. His skin was the color of ash, his eyes silver and expressionless, his long fingers folded on the podium in front of him like he was already bored. He had governed this council for over 2 centuries. He had presided over the admission of 47 species to galactic standing. He had also presided over the disciplinary hearings of 11 others. I was there for hearing number 12. The charge was intellectual theft. That was the official language. Humanity had, without permission, without license, stolen the most guarded secret in the galaxy, the Valoran Echo Protocol, the mathematical key that let a civilization fold spacetime like wet paper without paying the universal tax of entropy. We had taken it, reverse engineered it, and used it to save ourselves while the galaxy watched and did nothing. I stepped forward onto the single black disk that served as the defendant's platform. My boots clicked against the obsidian. The sound echoed too loudly, too human. Every eye in the chamber, compound, crystalline, spectral, was fixed on me. I could feel the weight of their collective judgment pressing down like gravity from a neutron star. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice, when I finally spoke, was steady. Speaker Kau, delegates of the council, I stand before you not as a thief but as a survivor. Humanity did not steal your protocol out of greed. We stole it because your laws left us no other choice. The chamber seemed to inhale as I began my defense, the blue lights dimming slightly as if the very architecture resented my presence. I told them everything, starting from the beginning, the day our deep space telescopes first caught the faint, impossible echo of a signal that should not have existed. It was 2047 on Earth. We were still reeling from the collapse. Oceans boiled by runaway warming, cities drowned, supply chains shattered, billions starving while the last fusion reactors flickered out. The signal was clean, elegant, repeating every 17.3 seconds like a heartbeat from the void. Our best cryptographers, linguists, and physicists worked around the clock for 6 months before we cracked it. It wasn't a message. It was code. Pure, living mathematics describing how to stitch 2 points in spacetime together without the usual explosion of Hawking radiation. The Valoran Echo Protocol. We thought it was a gift from the stars. We had no idea it was copyrighted, licensed, and guarded under Article 19 of the Galactic Accord, punishable by species-wide sanction. By the time we realized, we had already built the first prototype drive on the dark side of the moon. It worked. It let us jump to Proxima Centauri in 11 minutes. It let us mine asteroids without radiation shielding. It let us feed the dying billions with replicated protein matrices pulled from folded vacuum energy. We called it salvation. The galaxy called it theft. I described the years of desperate pleas we sent into the dark, hundreds of tight beam transmissions begging for trade rights, for emergency licensing, for any form of aid. The council never answered. Not once. While our children died of engineered plagues and our polar ice vanished, the Valorans and their allies continued their eternal trade in perfected realities, selling slices of folded spacetime to the highest bidder at prices only empires could afford. We were not even a recognized species then, just a pre-contact curiosity, a noisy little planet screaming in the dark. So we did what any cornered animal does, we learned in secret. We reverse-engineered the protocol from the fragments we had. We paid for it with the lives of 300 test pilots who burned up in failed jumps. We paid for it with the sanity of the scientists who stared too long into the equations and came back speaking in fractal tongues. And when the first successful colony ship vanished into the fold and reappeared in orbit around Gliese 581 in under an hour, we knew we had crossed the line. But Earth's light stayed on. Our hospitals filled with hope instead of corpses. For the first time in a century, children laughed without the shadow of famine behind their eyes. That was the crime. That was the intellectual theft the Council now sought to punish. I looked up at Vorith Cow and asked him plainly, if your laws condemn a species to extinction for the crime of wanting to live, then your laws are not justice, they are murder dressed in legal language. The chamber remained silent, but I saw one delegate, a crystalline being from the shard worlds, flicker with faint violet light, the only sign of discomfort I had witnessed all day. Flashbacks flooded me as I spoke, memories of the night we activated the first planetary-scale echo array beneath the Antarctic ice. The sky tore open like silk. Stars wheeled in impossible patterns. For exactly 7 seconds the laws of physics hiccuped, and every clock on Earth ran backward by 3 minutes. We had broken reality, just a little. The Council called it an unacceptable violation of the Universal Constant Treaty. I called it the only reason my mother was still alive to see her granddaughter born. I told them about the riots that followed the first public demonstration, how people knelt in the streets and wept when they saw the live feed from our new Mars outpost established in a single afternoon. I told them about the Valoran scout drone we captured 2 years later, sleek, silver, silent. Its memory core still broadcasting the same 17.3-second pulse that had started everything. We never returned it. We couldn't. By then the protocol was woven into every facet of human civilization. Removing it would mean dismantling our entire future. Vorith Cow finally spoke, his voice like dry leaves scraping across stone. The law is not flexible, Commander Solis. Your species has taken that which was never offered. The penalty is total reversion. The words landed like hammer blows. Total reversion. They would strip us of every echo-derived technology, every folded drive, every energy matrix. They would leave us naked in the dark again, 8 billion souls on a dying rock with no way out. I felt the chamber tilt. My knees almost buckled. But I kept talking, because if this was theater, I would give them the performance of a lifetime. I painted the picture of what total reversion would mean. Cities going dark, hospitals losing power, orbital habitats crashing into the Pacific, the slow death of hope that had only just begun to bloom. I reminded them that humanity had already survived worse, plagues, wars, climate collapse, and we had done it without their precious protocol. But now we knew what was possible. We had tasted the stars. Taking it away would not restore balance, it would breed resentment that would fester for millennia. Some species in this chamber had committed worse crimes and received only slaps on their many wrists. The insectoid hive matriarch from the Beta Quadrant had once glassed an entire moon for resource rights and was still seated in the 3rd tier, clicking softly in approval of the proceedings. The gaseous cloud being from the Veil Nebula had dissolved entire civilizations for aesthetic reasons and yet retained full voting rights. Why was humanity singled out? Because we were new. Because we were small. Because we dared to innovate instead of beg. My voice cracked only once, when I spoke of my little sister who had died at age 9 from a cancer we could now cure in hours thanks to echo-derived medical fields. I asked the Council if they would look a dying child in the eye and tell her that galactic law forbade her survival. For the first time, a low murmur rippled through the delegates. It was tiny, but it was there. Vorith Cow raised one ash-colored hand and the murmur died instantly. The vote has been cast, he intoned. The sentence is total reversion, to be enforced within 1 solar cycle. Humanity will be placed under quarantine. Any attempt to retain echo technology will result in immediate sterilization of the soul system. The words echoed off the skull-like walls. I stood there, 31 years old, the last human voice in a galaxy that had already written our epitaph. The rest of the hearing blurred into procedural language and formal pronouncements. I was escorted from the disk by 2 silent Valoran guards whose skin hummed with contained energy fields. As I walked the long aisle between the curved tiers, I felt the eyes of 900 civilizations judging me. Some pitied. Most did not care. A few, very few, looked almost ashamed. One small mammalian delegate from a backwater world even met my gaze and offered the slightest nod of solidarity. It was enough to keep me from screaming. Back in the human embassy pod orbiting the council station, I recorded my final report. Earth would fight, of course. We always did. But the protocol was too deeply embedded, ripping it out would kill millions in the transition. The council knew that. They counted on it. They wanted us broken, not dead, just humbled, crawling, dependent again. As the pod's engines thrummed for the long journey home, I stared out the viewport at the impossible architecture of the station, rings within rings, each one a testament to technologies we had only begun to steal. Humanity had broken reality, yes. But the Galactic Council had just broken something far more dangerous, our belief that the universe might be fair. The stars wheeled past, cold and indifferent. I closed my eyes and whispered the only truth that still mattered. We will find another way. We always do. The verdict was already decided. But the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Days later, as our ship approached Earth, the full weight of the sentence settled over the planet like a funeral shroud. Newsfeeds screamed the verdict in every language. Riots erupted in the reclaimed megacities. Some people burned effigies of Vorith Cow while others knelt in silent prayer, begging the council for mercy that would never come. I stood on the observation deck of the orbital elevator, watching the blue marble turn beneath me, and realized the real war had only just begun. The Echo Protocol lived in our blood now, in our ships, in our children's DNA after 3 generations of subtle medical integration. Stripping it away would be like tearing out our nervous system. Yet the enforcement fleet was already forming at the edge of the system, sleek Valoran cruisers glowing with pale light, ready to enforce total reversion. I knew then that compliance meant slow death and defiance meant immediate annihilation. Neither option was acceptable. So I made a choice that would either save us or damn us forever. In the hidden labs beneath Olympus Mons on Mars, the resistance had already started. Scientists who had once built the first echo drives now worked in secret to create something new, a wild, unstable variant they called the human fracture. It didn't fold spacetime cleanly like the Valoran original. It shattered it. It tore holes between realities and let us slip through the cracks. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and it might kill half of us in the attempt. But it was ours. It carried no alien license, no traceable signature the Council could detect. I volunteered to pilot the first test run. The night before the launch, I sat with my mother in the small habitat dome, holding her hand as the red dust swirled outside the windows. She told me stories of the old Earth, before the collapse, before the stars became both hope and threat. She said the galaxy had broken us once already with indifference. Now they wanted to break us again with law. I kissed her forehead and promised her we would not break. Not this time. The test flight was scheduled for the dark side of Phobos. The shuttle was small, barely large enough for one pilot and the unstable fracture core. When I climbed into the cockpit, the controls felt alive under my fingers, humming with raw, unperfect power. The countdown echoed in my helmet. 10. 9. 8. The stars outside the canopy looked different now, sharper, hungrier. At 0 the fracture ignited. Reality screamed. The shuttle didn't jump so much as rip itself out of existence. For one terrifying heartbeat I saw every possible version of myself. Dying on the council floor, laughing on a green earth that never knew collapse, burning in the heart of a star. Then I was through. I emerged in the Oort cloud, light years from Sol in less than a second. The human fracture worked. It was ugly, it was violent, but it worked. And it was invisible to council sensors. I brought the data back hidden in my own neural implant, smuggled past the first quarantine drones. Within weeks the resistance grew from a handful of scientists to thousands. We built fracture drives in asteroid shipyards, in abandoned lunar craters, in the hollowed cores of comet nuclei. Each new ship was a middle finger to the Galactic Council. Each successful jump proved that humanity would not crawl. We would not beg. We would not return to the dark ages they demanded. Vorith Kau's enforcement fleet arrived exactly on schedule, one solar cycle after the verdict. Their cruisers hung above Earth like silver blades. Broadcasts demanded immediate surrender of all echo technology. We answered with silence. Then we answered with the fracture. The first human fleet emerged from nowhere, tearing holes in spacetime around the Valoran Armada. Our ships were smaller, rougher, painted with makeshift human symbols, Earth flags, children's drawings, quotes from old poets who once dreamed of the stars. We didn't fight to destroy them. We fought to show them we could not be broken. The battle lasted 11 hours. Reality fractured and healed in 1,000 places. Ships blinked in and out of existence. Valoran weapons that relied on perfect spacetime folded uselessly against our chaotic tears. In the end, the Council fleet withdrew. Not defeated, but confused. Shaken. For the first time in 2 centuries, Vorith Kau had no prepared speech. No rehearsed silence. Only the sight of 8 billion humans who refused to kneel. I stood on the bridge of the lead fracture ship, watching the alien armada retreat into the dark. My hands still shook from the aftereffects of the jump. Blood trickled from my nose where the fracture had pushed my brain past its limits. But I smiled. Because in that moment I understood something the Galactic Council would never grasp. They thought they could break humanity with laws and verdicts and superior technology. They were wrong. Humanity doesn't break when you take everything away. We break reality instead. We always have. The stars looked different now. Wilder. More alive. More ours. Somewhere in the distance, I imagined Vorith Kau sitting once again in his pale-lit podium, silver eyes finally showing something other than boredom. Maybe fear. Maybe respect. It didn't matter. The verdict was already decided, they said. But humanity had decided something else. We would write our own future, one fractured, stolen, impossible jump at a time. And the galaxy would have to learn to live with it. Back on Earth, the light stayed on. Children still laughed. The oceans were still rising, but now we had tools to fight them that no one could take away. The Council would return. Stronger. Angrier. With new laws and new punishments. But we would be ready. Because we had learned the hardest lesson of all, the universe doesn't give you permission to survive. You take it. You steal it if you must. You break reality if that's what it takes. My name is Yara Solis. I was 31 years old when the Galactic Council tried to break humanity. They failed. And every human alive today carries that failure like a badge of honor. The story isn't over. It has only just begun.